All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking, presented by FanDuel Canada, official sportsbook of the NHL. Today's video, we're looking at must-drop players as we head into Week 3 of the fantasy hockey season. A little bit more to look at now. With about 82 games through the NHL season, we can find some players that are definitely candidates to drop off your fantasy hockey team. I have 6 players on this list, a couple guys over 40% rostered, one guy at the end that I was really high on that was just, I was wrong, and I'd be shocked if he comes back from this fall from grace at this point. But let's get into the video, boys. All right, so the first guy we're dropping, Jordan Eberle on the Seattle Kraken, 46% rostered in that right wing spot on that first line alongside Matty Beniers. You'd think he'd be able to produce with Beniers, as Beniers being a playmaker, first pass first type of player, but not this year. And I think the Seattle Kraken team as a whole will take a dip offensively. You know, I think last year, offensively wise, they played a little bit above their sticks. You know, they were bottom 10 in expected goals for in the NHL last season in 5-on-5 play, but they actually led the NHL in goals per 60. So they just were scoring on a very high shooting percentage in 5-on-5 hockey. And it just obviously wasn't very sustainable. And one of those players last year was also Jordan Eberle. He had 20 goals last season on a shooting percentage about 12%. He's always hovered around that 10 to 12 shooting percentage, but I think this might be the season where we see Jordan Eberle to start to fall off, because as of right now, his shooting percentage is 0. He only has 8 shots on goal logged through 6 games, and he has 1 assist. I believe he even came in that first game as well. So obviously not a great start for him, but even though he's on that first line with Beniers and he's on that first power play line, he's 9th in ice time on the team, and he's not efficient when he's on the ice. At that point, I know 16 minutes per game might sound like a lot, but it's really not that much, especially when you're only getting 8 shots to show for that in a 6-game span. He's also 12th in Corsi for in the Kraken to start the year, so that's pretty low. Means the puck is really not on his stick when he is on the ice, which is sad to see. So get rid of Jordan Eberle and make some room for someone a little bit more valuable in your fantasy hockey team. Make sure you check out that must-add that I dropped 2 days ago. All right, so the next guy we're looking at, Ivan Barbashev on the Vegas Golden Knights, has that dual position capability, center and left wing, 42% rostered, but we're still going to have to drop him. Last week, his expected goals for was 0.04. That is very bad. That was actually same as Jordan Eberle's expected goals for last week. So really low numbers in terms of producing offense for those two guys. He's 11th in ice time on his team right now on Vegas with just 1 goal in 6 games. Very similar to Eberle. Plays on the first line alongside Jack Eichel and Jonathan Marchessault, but plays on that second power play line that's kind of led by William Karlsson there. He's 11th in Corsi for. So just one of those players, again, like Eberle, when he's on the ice, none of the offense drives through him, and he's not getting his own chances. It's clear that even these top lines, you know, like getting a piece from the top line, people always say in fantasy hockey is valuable, but it seems like there's always 2 guys and then kind of a sidekick. And I'll be totally honest, it's very apparent that Ivan Barbashev is going to be the sidekick to Jonathan Marchessault and Jack Eichel. It kind of just works like that because they're just way better hockey players. We're already seeing his roster percentage drop. I remember I did a video before the weekend started. He was about 57% rostered, already down to 42% rostered. So that means, you know, he's obviously not trending in the right direction in terms of public fantasy hockey league. So definitely drop Ivan Barbashev and pick up something much better. All right, the next guy we're going to be dropping Brayden Schenn on the St. Louis Blues. Like Barbashev, has that dual position ability with center and left wing, but he's 42% rostered, and I'd say, like these other 2 guys I've already talked about, you can drop him with confidence. His expected goals for last week was 0.15. That's a very low number. He's just not creating a lot of his own offense right now, obviously getting a little bit older at this point of his career, but at 42% rostered, you also just don't want someone who's on a team who's this bad at creating offense and scoring goals. The St. Louis Blues seems like they will continue to struggle to score goals this year. If it's not coming from that top line, I don't know where it's going to be coming from, and it's clearly that no one else really has much output. Last year, they really struggled scoring goals, and their solution to that, let's sign Kevin Hayes and Oscar Sundqvist, 2 guys that have really... Kevin Hayes had a pretty decent year in Philly, but 2 guys that haven't scored a ton of goals or have been able to like change lines in the past. They scored more than 3 goals 1 game. It was their most recent game against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh also a very bad defensive team. They allow a ton of chances. They scored 4 goals. Schenn had no points. He had 1 shot on goal. So clearly he's just not a focal point of this offense right now. It's obviously led more by Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, some of these younger guys on the team. Sure, he's playing a lot, but like I mentioned, he's not doing anything when he's out there. These bottom-feeding teams like St. Louis, I don't think they're going to have a ton of fantasy value when you look at them as a whole, like in terms of individual players. I think the only player I'd really want to own on this St. Louis team is maybe Robert Thomas, some of the defensemen in Torrey Krug, you know, Justin Falk's not bad, Jordan Binnington, obviously he's had a good start to the year, and then Jordan Kyrou as well. But you can drop Schenn with confidence knowing that I don't think he'll be back on your radar to pick up anytime soon. All right, the next guy we're dropping, and it's kind of a funny one because I find it hilarious that this guy's even this highly rostered, but everyone talks about him in bangers leagues and fantasy hockey drafts at the beginning of the year, saying I'm going to take him at the end because he's going to be just as valuable as someone like Ryan McDonough or, I don't know, Tyson Barrie because he gets so many points and hits and blocks, and that's Radko Gudas on the Anaheim Ducks. 42% rostered right now. I saw that north of 50 not too long ago as well. Everyone adds Gudas for his hits and his blocks for bangers leagues. Don't get me wrong. Last year, he was an absolute tank, and I totally agree with that take. But he's just not doing it on Anaheim. I guess it's just not really a similar style. You know, they obviously don't play with the lead a lot like Florida was last year. He also, you know, there's a lot of injuries on that Florida team. There's a lot of young defensemen on Anaheim they're trying to get more ice time to. He's only playing 18 minutes per game. For a defenseman, that's not crazy high. In my must-add video, I talked about Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He's playing like 24 minutes per game right now. Like, that's a 6-minute difference. You know, I'd much rather have the guy who's playing 6 minutes per game. And sure, his hits and blocks, like right now, he's outside the top 40 in the NHL when you're looking at hits and blocks. He has 12 hits and 11 blocks. Both of those numbers rank outside the top 40, not just defensemen, all players, obviously, we're including there. He also has no points. That's not shocking at all. And for a defenseman, like just a guy that's not going to be playing in a ton of scenarios for this Anaheim team, he's certainly not on any of the power plays. He might get some time on the penalty kill, but at 42% rostered, you know, it's just not really worth keeping on your team for a guy who's not going to get enough points. If you're going to rely solely on those hits and blocks, he has to be somewhere in the top 20 at this point. So I'm letting Radko Gudas go. Even in bangers leagues, you know, if you want to hold on to him for a little bit longer, that's fine, but I think he'll just proven to be not as valuable as someone else you could pick up, like Oliver Ekman-Larsson or something like that. All right, the next guy we're going to be dropping is Matt Duchene on the Dallas Stars. 32% rostered, so a little bit lower than these other guys. This one I'm a little bit more hesitant to drop just because I know the Stars offense can really go off at any point, but I did definitely talk about in my preseason fantasy hockey stuff that this Stars offense was going to regress a little bit. Their power play percentage was like top 3 in the NHL last year. Their shooting percentage was really, really high as well. And it's starting to trickle down because we're seeing Matt Duchene, no points through 4 games. He has 9 shots on goal. He's playing about 18 minutes per game. So the ice time is there, which is encouraging. I don't love the line he plays on, to be honest, with Mason Marchment and Tyler Seguin. Mason Marchment's been such a disappointment since coming over from Florida. He had that awesome year in Florida, and then since being with Dallas, just hasn't really shown the same type of skill that we saw when he was a Panther. So that's one thing that, you know, to kind of note. Duchene at the tail end of his career definitely was a goal scorer, but needs other guys on his line that are going to score. Tyler Seguin a little bit in the same boat, a little bit end of his career, kind of that stages as well. He's creating a decent amount of offense, but it's just not getting through. This Dallas team has struggled to score early on in this year. As I mentioned, this one I'm a little bit more hesitant, but I definitely would drop him. I think there's better guys out there that you could pick up right now who are playing much better. If you drop Matt Duchene, I don't think he's going anywhere, to be honest. So you could drop Matt Duchene, pick up Trevor Moore, maybe pick up a guy who has 4 games this week that you could look at. That would be a good strategy, I think, for right now. And then keep an eye on Matt Duchene, and maybe you pick him up a little bit later on in the year. But dropping Matt Duchene for guys like Trevor Moore are definitely a viable option and something I would be doing right now. Okay, the last one, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, Jonathan Drouin. It's time to drop him, guys. I know, I was so wrong about Jonathan Drouin. I thought he was going to stay on that first line with Nathan MacKinnon for a decent amount of time. Seemed like Jared Bednar was going to give him a little bit more of a leash, but that's just not the case because he's not performing at all. So he's now down the third line with Ross Colton and Miles Wood. Not somewhere I think he's going to succeed. Obviously, I thought he'd be much better suited with Nathan MacKinnon because he can get a ton of residuals. These guys played off each other so well in Halifax as well. But now you're seeing Jared Bednar really switch up these lines. Arturi Lehkonen has been fantastic. He's on the first line now with MacKinnon and Valeri Nichushkin, and now Rantanen's even on the second line with Ryan Johansson. So really is changing things up. Who knows, maybe Drouin gets back up on that first line, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Maybe his even second power play time will start to dwindle as well. But 5 games played, he only has 1 assist. That came in the first game. Since then, he really has not done anything. He's only playing 14 minutes per game. Look, he's 12% rostered. It's not like everyone knows. It's not like he's going to be on a ton of rosters right now, but if you do have him hoping that he's going to be much better, this is probably not going to happen. And the one thing I will say, unfortunately, hopefully you made the switch from Drouin to Arturi Lehkonen in my first must-add video after the first week of fantasy hockey. He's been fantastic since then. Jonathan Drouin missed out on his opportunity. I think this guy's career is done probably after this year or the next one. Too bad to see, but definitely drop Jonathan Drouin fantasy. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of this week's must-drop video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Download the FanDuel Canada app. That link will be in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.